Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, where we'll be focusing on another classic weekend. We've got the Irish 2000 Guineas this Saturday. We've got plenty of domestic action as well. This country has faced a deluge of rain over the last couple of days, which, bizarrely enough, some of the clerk of the courses weren't expecting at all. So that's changed the ground conditions over this country, although it looks like the Curragh missed it, as we've got good to firm going conditions is what I see at present. But cracking lineup of racing this weekend. As I said, the Irish 2000 Guineas is the one we're going to focus on to start with, in the company, as always, Tom Collins and Ross Miller. And we've got a field size of 8 for the Irish 2000 Guineas at the Curragh on Saturday, headlined by the 2000 Guineas and this soil runner-up Rosallion. We've got a couple of Aidan O'Brien horses that we have not seen yet this season in the shape of River Tiber and Unquestionable. Sorry, I should say 3. Mountain Bear also in there. So the first and second from the Breeders' Cup running at the Curragh on Saturday. The third in the 2000 Guineas, Hartem, is in there as well. And SBK has installed Rosallion as the even money favourite. Tom Collins, rightly or wrongly, even money based on what he did, based on the level of form he showed behind what looked to be of a monster 2000 Guinea winner.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair, to be honest, Jess. And I wouldn't be surprised if he drifted out to maybe 11 to 10 or 6 to 5 actually come the day, or at least in the build-up between now, the time of recording on Thursday, and the race. 8 of the last 20 winners of the Irish 2000 Guineas have been English trained, which is interesting, given Aidan O'Brien's dominance with 3-year-olds in that time frame. And Rosallion showed a very good level of ability in the Kipco 2000 Guineas. He ran a winning race. He just so happened to bump into Notable Speech, who looks just out of the ordinary. He showed good professionalism. He tracked the pace. He burst clear when a gap opened in front, and he beat the rest comfortably. Just unfortunately, the Godolphin horse had that better turn of foot. Rosallion proved that day that he improved from 2 to 3, which I think is a big tick in his box, because we don't necessarily know if that's going to be the scenario with Aidan O'Brien's horses. And if he runs to an RPR of 119 or his official rating of 118, I think he's going to win this race. So I'm happy to put him up as the selection. Quick word on the Aidan O'Brien runners. River Tiber, I really liked last year. I fancied him when he lost to Vandeek. I really fancied him for the Breeders' Cup, where he was unfortunately scratched before the race. If he can come back and really build on his 2-year-old campaign, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw down a challenge. But we have seen with quite a few of Aidan's horses, they've needed their first run of the year. So maybe he'll be a little bit rusty. Unquestionable ended up winning that Breeders' Cup contest. It wasn't much for a race once River Tiber was pulled out. The US group weren't fantastic, and the rest of the Europeans weren't great either. So I don't know about him. He looked an out-and-out 2-year-old to me. Mountain Bear, I ended up tipping each way in the Breeders' Cup contest, and he ran fantastically from the back of the pack, but he did pick up an injury after the race, and he had to stay over in the US for a few weeks. Now he's coming back off the layoff. It's great to see him back on the track, but I think he'll definitely need the run. So there are slight doubts about all Aidan's runners, and that just increases my confidence on this jolly.
Okay, Mountain Bear, yeah, it was a bad injury, but God, he really rattled home strongly. Unquestionable won that race. The form strengthened for Rosallion, really, because Rosallion held Unquestionable at bay at Longchamp. So it's really, Rosallion is the form horse. I suppose the question might be now, and I'll come back to you, Tom, with that in mind, with Rosallion, he's drawn in stall 6. We've seen sometimes that jockeys that aren't as familiar with the Curragh can get bullied a little bit. They'll probably do their best to keep an eye on Sean Levy. Do you see that this could possibly be the only slight hindrance with him, is that the jockeys, the home team, will know how to try and sort of maneuver around and make sure it's not going to be plain sailing at all for him?
Yeah, they could try and enforce some team tactics, but at the same time, I think in a race like this with a smallish field, he'll be able to get away with it. It's the age-old debate, isn't it, of jockeys going to courses where they don't have necessarily the experience, or we could move that onto the Derby, can't we, about jockeys that haven't had experience riding in the Derby or Epsom itself. And we've seen numerous bad decisions, and people jump into conclusions when it comes to that. So I'm happy that Rosallion will be given a decent ride, and that team tactics, albeit they could become enforced, they won't probably have a big decision in the actual result of this race.
Yeah, he doesn't look difficult. He doesn't look uncomplicated. I think he got far too much daylight really at Newmarket last time, whereas he probably, with the bunched up nature of this race, he probably will hope to do what he did a long shot and go past horses late on. Rosallion is so solid, isn't he? And I think it's interesting that we've got a lineup of horses that we don't know what they're like yet as 3-year-olds. And I suppose that's the question, Ross, when, looking at River Tiber last year, he looked in and out sprinter. They're trying to stretch him out to a mile. I've heard in interviews with Aidan O'Brien that it's either going to be miling route or they'll bring him back to the likes of the Commonwealth Cup over 6 furlongs. Whereas Unquestionable and the likes of Mountain Bear, we know that they've already proved their ability to stay over that trip. So there's a bit more guessing game when it comes to River Tiber, but those other two have solid chances. We just don't know what they are yet at 3, and maybe their pedigrees, at least with Unquestionable, not a hugely big downside, but out of a See the Stars mare, I think that you believe that he probably has got a lot of longevity there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I slightly disagree. I don't think River Tiber did look like an out-and-out sprinter. I think he was running at 6 furlong trip because they had such a wealth of 7 furlong potential milers, City of Troy, Henry Longfellow. You could go on and on. I thought he was winning the Coventry Stakes because of his class. I mean, he was under the pump from some way out. He got engaged in a battle from some way out, and it was, I thought, stamina that won the day. Even in the middle park, Vandeek shot past him like a very, very quick horse with a furlong to go, but never actually pulled away from him. If anything, you could say that River Tiber was coming back at the line. I think you can put a line through his run in the pre-morning. They said that he'd had a hasty prep, he'd had a muscle pull, and he didn't really show himself there. His pedigree is, all over the shop. So Wootton Bassett appears to be getting certainly 10 furlong horses. Al Mansour and King of Steel would be his best 2, and they stayed 10 furlongs very, very well. Transcendence the Dam is a Arcano bred dam. He's an influence of speed essentially, but I was looking back, he was third in the Greenham, and actually I watched it back just from sort of idle curiosity, and he was staying on over 7 furlongs in the Greenham. So you could find little bits of stamina in there if you so chose, but I just think he was so strong at the finish over 6 furlongs. I agree with TC. I think he is the one that's open to a little bit of improvement. I think TC is right that the Aidan O'Brien 3-year-olds seem to be taking a run, which is a bit of a worry. I think Rosallion is definitely the right favourite, and I think he's the right price. But only 2 have been beaten in the English 2,000 guineas and gone on to win the Irish 2,000 guineas in the last 10 years. And if you were going to put a hole in him, he was surely long odds on travelling through the 2,000 guineas last time. And you could argue that perhaps he didn't quite get home. Now, TC's right. He did bump into a very good horse in the winner and comfortably beat the rest. But Hartem was not all that far behind. I'm still not sold on him being a vintage sort of level horse. So I think you could pull a hole in the form so far. Unquestionable has got a length to find from the Jean-Luc Lagadier last year. He raced up with the pace. Sean Levy gave Rosallion a really good ride on that occasion. Pounced quite late, did them, I thought, for a bit of a turn of foot. If Rosallion can get dragged into a bit of a battle, I would question whether he would stay. I wouldn't question Unquestionable. I think he would definitely stay further than a mile out of that See the Stars mare by Wootton Bassett. So I can see the angle on the favourite, but I'd take him on with River Tiber and Unquestionable. And if you want to do, if you were sold on TC's argument for the favourite, you could maybe put those 2 in a same race ACCA to place River Tiber and Unquestionable. But I don't think it's as cut and dried, perhaps, as the market is suggesting at the moment.
Yeah, okay. River Tiber, then will he stay? Is he a real true miler as a 3-year-old? Ross seems pretty confident. I'm not entirely certain. I've just got my doubts around him, whereas I think Rosallion is, we know what we've got there, and would have to agree. And look, this horse, as I said, even money with SBK, but SBK will be running a 25% winning boost on this race, so very much well worth having a punt if you're interested. Unquestionable, I love what he did at Santa Anita. I think it really made a man of him. I think he's quite versatile. Be interested to see how they ride him. They might like to get him out on the front end, and maybe Sean Levy will just track with Rosallion. As I said, we know how versatile he seems to be, and I think they'll be delighted to see that the ground is on the far side. So it's a pretty good looking, actually, without, albeit being an absolute jam packed full of multiple runners. Irish 2000 Guineas. It's not a huge amount of other home contention. Joseph O'Brien's got Atlantic Coast, Bright Stripes for Andy Oliver, and Take Me to Church for Jack Davison, making up the rest of them. But as I say, if you like Rosallion, which we all seem to do, but you have something for River Tiber or Unquestionable, please do play that SBK Same Race ACCA. And we've talked about a horse that kind of sort of links in with River Tiber. That's Vandeek. He's running at Haydock on Saturday. A really good looking card. Return of Vandeek in a kind of a year where there isn't a huge amount of top quality Group 1 horses. I'm not sure who the best horses in training is at the moment. I think that's open to debate massively, especially after what we saw in the lock-in last weekend. So it will be good to see how Vandeek gets on. That's coming up at Haydock, and that's just ahead of just after the Temple Stakes, which is the next race we're going to look at. Vandeek is a very short price, whereas the Temple Stakes looks like a better race from a betting perspective that we can get our teeth into for this podcast. But as I said, mentioned Vandeek because he's an exciting prospect for this term. Temple Stakes just goes to show how murky the sprinting division is, and when Vandeek and the likes, even Big Evs, does try their hand against their elders, this is the kind of calibre of horse they'll be thinking about. It's race over 5 furlongs, but as I mentioned, there's been a deluge of rain and it's soft ground at Haydock on Saturday. So we wonder what the Aussie mare Asphora will think about that. Brought over with the now renamed King Charles III in mind at Royal Ascot. She's actually installed as one of the market leaders for the race. She is 4-1, along with the Nunthorpe Stakes winner, who's also 4-1, Living the Dream. The Dream, who'll love the rain, is 4-1, and Road Lightning 6-1, Beautiful Diamond 9-1, bigger price for us than on SBK. So yeah, this is an interesting horse. I know you've got your mind always on international doings. I'm not sure maybe Australia as much as America, TC, but looking at her record, it wouldn't be the most standout of Australian sprinters we've seen. Or was that fair to say?
Yeah, Asphora is a really interesting runner in the race. Obviously, it's great to see an Australian horse in this field. Otherwise, it will kind of lose any sparkle whatsoever. It's not the best of Temples by any means. She seemed to find Group 1 company a little bit too tough recently, but then again, this is nowhere near Group company in the UK. She has some form on soft ground, albeit the go and stick reading currently at Haydock is 6.2. I had a look on the weather forecast over a couple of different apps and websites, and it looks like it's dry between now and Saturday. So maybe it will slow. Maybe it will quicken up. Maybe we'll see a bit of good to soft at the very least, and that will definitely help her chance. I just don't really know what to make of her. So it's hard for me to support her in this race. I think she'll be up there and there. She should be thereabouts, but her best form has all come over 5.5 furlongs and 6 furlongs. So that was my one negative, the step back in trip. But then again, you have notable question marks about every horse in this year's Temple. I mean, Living the Dream should go in the ground, but would definitely prefer it quicker. He's also coming off the layoff, and he's months away from his seasonal target, which again is apparently the Breeders' Cup. So I'm not convinced that he's going to be anywhere near fit to justify his price. You've got Rogue Lightning, who can be keen. Another one coming off the layoff, which is a worry for him. Equality, I just don't think he's good enough. He might be, but he's getting on now with age, 6-year-old, and he'll go forward. He'll be part of the early speed. And that kind of leaves me with the 3 who ran in the Palace House at Newmarket last month. 7 Questions ended up winning the race, causing a big upset, a huge price. Verdream was second, and Beautiful Diamond was third. You could have thrown a blanket, to use a cliche of racecourse commentators, over the front 6 or 7 in that race. There wasn't much separating them. And I don't usually like taking form out of events like that because I think they're all much of muchness. It's probably not worth a lot. However, you can make solid cases for all 3. The Dream, if the ground stays soft, is a huge player and going to be tough to beat. There's no doubt about that. I saw one firm went 16-1 early in the week. I bet they're regretting that now. But I'm going to side with Beautiful Diamond, who showed a good level of form at 2. She was just a little bit lit up at Newmarket last time. She raced without cover on the far side, yet she still went close. I think with any kind of improvement, she should be right up there at the line. And crucially, the main angle for supporting her is she's drawn in stall 9. You need to be towards the stand side generally in the temple, so that's higher draws, and she's positioned to go well.
Yeah, it's interesting, this race from a pace angle. I thought Living the Dream, we know the way that he likes to get out quick from the stalls. I'd imagine Asphora, that's what they will do with her. She has been slow away in the past, but that's usually how they like to race horses in Australia anyway. So she's of note. Rogue Lightning is very interesting. Changed hands ownership wise for a big sum of money, but stays with Tom Clother in Wathnan Racing. First run for him. He's in stall 10, and of note is the draw bias, as TC says. You want to be this near side. Rogue Lightning's in 10. It was when the rain came down, I thought Vadream, maybe it's her day again, because she ran a blinder, didn't she, Ross? Despite it maybe not being her absolute optimums at Newmarket last time, in a race where if you'd run it 5 times, there'd be several different outcomes. So no surprise she's been heavily supported in this fixture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was a logical one for me. I think Living the Dream, is a long way clear on ratings, 117. But he seems to be getting with racing faster and faster from the gate. That doesn't come without a payoff. I think it's almost making him a little bit softer at the finish. And 5 and a bit furlongs at the Breeders' Cup seem to stretch him on really quick ground. So you have to think that 5 furlongs here on soft ground is going to blunt his main asset. He has won on soft ground, but that was in a handicap at Pontefract off a mark of 100. So I think probably class got him through on that occasion. I think he's vulnerable, and I think Vadream is the standout. She's 3 of the 4 wins have come on soft or heavy ground. The other one came on the all-weather. I thought she ran way above expectation in the Palace House Stakes last time. This time last year in the Palace House Stakes, she got very close to Living the Dream. Had him a length behind, stayed very powerfully. The soft ground, again, is just the key. She's a very, very good filly when she's got her conditions, and she looks like she's arriving here in very good form, which isn't always the case. Often when the conditions go against her, she runs below par. I think she's improving all the time. They put 5 mil of water on. They then had plenty of rain and it's soft. Like TC, I looked at a couple of different forecasts, which might be a theory that others might want to catch on to rather than just looking at one and getting surprised by the weather. And there was drizzle about, sort of 2 mil was the most I found. That's not going to make it any softer, but it should prevent it from drying out too much. I thought she was no surprise to you, well supported. And I still think if you can be certain that you're going to get soft ground 4-1 with SBK is a really good price about her.
Yeah, and she might just get that bit shorter. She does. It's very conditions based, and she ran a blind, as I said, despite them probably not being soft enough for her last time. Living the Dream. Got to remember he was 3rd in this race last year, where he led all the way and then just sort of got tired, and that was off the back of finishing 2nd to the Dream the last time. He is very good, but I think he is a lot better when he's on very quick surface as well. So. Let's see how he gets on. All the best to him in the Group 1 winner. I am slightly disappointed at the draw that my selection has got Equality, and this isn't probably an SBK place play if you want to do it. Equality, I really like the performance he put in at Musselburgh in the Sunday Series. It was just a handicap. The Safi Osborne is retained keeps the ride essentially. He was very likable the way that he travelled. He probably will be kept just off the back of the main pace angles this time out. He does have Group 1 form. He was 3rd in the Group 1 at the Curragh last year. Look, this is open. I don't mind his price at 14-1. I just wish he wasn't drawn in stall 1. But we'll see what Safi elects to do with him. As TC said, you don't want to really be on that far side, and most of the running comes down this near rail. So that's the Temple Stakes. Plenty of options and ideas for you. The Group 2 at Haydock at 150. Right, we've got plenty of options for TC and Ross to choose from a Naps and Next Best selection. Good racing at Goodwood, great racing at York as well. We've even got a bit of Cartmel. So a lot to go through. So I'll start with TC.
Yeah, it was last week was very annoying. I had seconds with every single selection I put up on the podcast. The week before was good, so hopefully we can bounce back to that kind of form. Too many runners up recently, Jess. The nap is going to be Space Legend in the listed Cocked Hat Stakes at Goodwood, which we run at 3:45 p.m. Now, William Haggis's team just seems to start getting going around this time every year. Usually, as we enter June and go into July, he is firing on all cylinders, striking around 25 to 33%, roughly. He's had some bad luck recently. A couple of horses that have run well, but also a couple of horses that have run pretty poorly. Hopefully, we're starting to see that trend upwards, as Space Legend is one of Haggis's up-and-coming 3-year-olds. He finished a good second on his debut last year behind a horse who's subsequently been placed at a listed level. Then he came back and took a huge jump forward with his facile success on his reappearance. Now, he was a short price in that race. It wasn't much of a contest, and he made all the running, basically never challenged. But he achieved an RPR of 89, and the runner-up Trouville came out last week at Newbury and ran second to another one of Haggis's called Rhetorical, who many people are discussing Royal Ascot about. Hopefully, Space Legend will take another jump, which I fully anticipate given his rawness and inexperience, and he's stepping up to a trip of 1 mile 3 furlongs that will definitely bring the best out of him. So I quite like Space Legend in the Cocked Hat. It's usually a pretty good race, but the bar is set pretty low this year. Meydan is the current bar setter with a mark of around 95, and he's been beaten twice in a couple of Derby trials. So I think it's a race to pick an unexposed horse, and Space Legend looks just like that. And the next best is going to be in the 1 mile 2 furlong novice fillies event, down at Goodwood again, 4:20, and it's Candle of Dubai. Now this race is worth 50,000. I don't really know why, but it's a huge prize fund for a novice event. There are a couple of nice horses in there. John and Thady Gosden have got a first timer. Tom Ward's got a horse who ran very well at Sandown last time. But Candle of Dubai ran at Chelmsford on the debut for Charlie Johnston and finished a good second behind a horse called Nagata. Now Nagata came out this week, got beaten at a short price, so maybe you're thinking that form's not great. I think it was a better race than it looked, and Nagata just didn't manage to confirm that ability that he showed on debut. The fourth home was Lautrec, who subsequently came out and ran at Newmarket and finished a very good second. So that kind of confirms that it was an okay race. She's a big, scopy filly who needs the experience and needs a few runs. I love that Charlie Johnston's aimed her at this event at Goodwood, because I think there's probably a plan at Glorious Goodwood later in the campaign for her. Just getting a bit of track experience and track craft about her, and any kind of improvement will make her tough to beat. So Candle of Dubai in the 4:20 at Goodwood is my next best.
Okay, yeah, I like that Cocked Hat Stakes, as you say, not the best. I thought it was really between Lyric and Space Legend, wasn't it? Just whether who's got potentially the better form, but you've got to be so impressed by what Space Legend did at Leicester last time. So good luck with that, and hopefully your bout of seconditis can come to an end. It's one of the worst dilemmas you always have in racing, how you get away from seconditis. So we're wishing you the best of luck, TC, for this weekend. Ross, what do you like? What's your nap and next best? I feel I've got a feeling there's something at Cartmel that you'd be looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact you went to TC first confirms that you looked at where the selections were coming from for the naps and next best. But there is a nap at Cartmel in the 650, a horse I do like, Shilnavogi for Warren Greatrex. Caught my eye when comfortably accounting for the 89 rated Ioniti at Hereford on his penultimate start over 2 mile 3 in a novice handicap. Won by a very easy 6 lengths, conceding a pound. Didn't look to have the race in the bag early on, but stayed very powerfully. The further he went, the better he went. Then went to Foss last on his next start, and the ground was far more lively. At Hereford, it was soft. It was officially good to soft at Foss last, but it was riding quicker than that on the occasion. And he just struggled to get a bit tapped for toe, had to use too much petrol to get into the race and couldn't sustain it. He stays on a mark of 92. That's just up £3 for that win at Hereford. Back on slower ground at Cartmel. Won't matter if it dries out a little bit because he's up significantly in trip to 3 miles and a bit. I still think he's very well handicapped on that Hereford run. Warren Greatrex has been going along well. His win percentage has dropped in the last 2 weeks, but he's had a lot of horses, a bit like TC finishing runner-up. And so I don't have any concerns over the yard form. James Bowen riding really well. So Shilnavogi is the nap at Cartmel in the 650. And then, because I feared for my life from a Jess Stafford glare over the internet, the next best does come on the flat from York in the 2:45. And it's a I say a good friend of mine. He's a frustrating horse, but I do like him. Corker. He's a 5-1 chance with SBK. He was frustrating last year, and a lot of times he was very slowly away from the stalls, ran some very good closing fractions. He's been better on both accounts so far this year. He's jumped far more with the field. Notably when fourth at York last time, over this course and distance, off this mark, ran really well in a competitive race. I don't think this has got anywhere near the depth for all that it's the same class. And he made good late progress again into fourth, but he was short of room at a crucial stage. Didn't have to get snatched up, but just had to wait to fully get into gear. He's not a horse for the faint-hearted because he does often find traffic troubles, but I think he's still well handicapped off his current mark. He likes York, and he's the next best in the 245.
Okay, 5-1 with SBK. I'm not cross, I'm just disappointed. Because I know you love your juveniles, and we've got some really good juvenile races this weekend. The 235 at Goodwood is filled with maiden fillies, 2-year-olds, with pedigrees to die for. Where's your selection for that, Ross? Give the people what they want.
I tell you, I mean, the flat season in general is baffling me so far. We need something to catch light. We've got the Dante winner not going for the Derby. We got the supposed wonder horse bombing out in the Guineas. The exciting bit has largely been away from the racing, unfortunately. And the juveniles so far, I've struggled to get a grip on anything really. I think perhaps because of the cold, wet winter and also a little bit sort of slower ground than we're used to, I think we've had some very strange results. So I'm trying to sit on my hands and just wait until I feel like I've got a grip on the juveniles. But I will at some point, I hope.
Yeah, we're going to hold you to that. But look, I wouldn't completely disagree. It's been a funny old time. And maybe we're going to have a wonderful summer full of brilliant results when we get into peak Goodwood time and York time, which we all love. Look, that's fine. We'll let them off this time, as long as I say, as long as they're winners. We won't give you too much of a hard time. I am going over to the Curragh for my nap, keeping in the theme of the sprinters this weekend. The Green and Stakes at the Curragh at 2:30 has, I think, a lot of UK-based horses looking for the right ground for their charges. The likes of Art Power, who absolutely loves it at the Curragh, is back in action. Got Should Have Been a Ring, who was just denied at York last time. Regional, the Group 1 winner from last year, and at Haydock, he lines up as well. Bahi for Charlie Hills, and also an equal love for William Haggis amongst some from the UK. But it's the Ken Condon trained Moss Tucker, who I was really impressed by on his seasonal reappearance. He's a horse that normally really needs his first run, and he was a Group 1 winner at the Curragh, beat a lot of this field, including Art Power on the Champion Sunday, and he just looks better than ever. He's a 6-year-old now. I just really liked what he did and how well he seemed to be early on in the season. I hope that sets him up for another brilliant one. He's now officially rated 114. He just seems to be thriving. So Moss Tucker for me, who is 4-1 with SBK. And then another one at a bit of a price. Where I want to be is 11-1 for the fillies contest at Goodwood on Saturday. It's the Height of Fashion Stakes. She's got a rating officially of 77. And if Rafe Beckett, look, it's a funny one. Rafe Beckett probably could have run her in a handicap, because I think that would probably be worth exploiting. But he probably thinks that she's good enough as well, knowing the level of horse that Rafe Beckett has at the moment, especially his fillies, what he's got. She was pretty gutsy and tough to win at Nottingham on her final start when we saw her, which was over a long time ago, 242 days ago. She's the daughter of Camelot. Camelot is having his moment in the sun this season. He's got some really nice 3-year-olds. I just think she's quite a nice price for a very open-looking race. I can't really have Regal Jubilee, who absolutely bombed out in the Guineas. Francophine probably will run a solid race, and she'd be my bet selection. But very much a place play for SBK users for the Where I Want to Be selection at Goodwood on Saturday. So those are our naps. Next best to finish off with our feature races, the Irish 2000 Guineas and the Temple Stakes this Saturday. So looking forward to that, and hope we found some winners for you. Don't forget, all new SBK users and SBK users in general, make sure that you head to SBK. Lots of other offers and promotions suggestions. We've mentioned the same race ACCAs that are there for you if you've got a feeling that we could be barking up the right tree with a couple of them in the same race. All new SBK users get £30 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And I hope that you've enjoyed this. This time next week, we'll be focusing on the Derby. What a race, or maybe what not so much of a race it's turning out to be this year. And so look forward to you joining us then, and have a lovely weekend.